Welcome to the Inside Out podcast. I'm your host, Jojo, and this is where we will navigate the mess together. That is mental, emotional, and spiritual. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. Happy whatever day it is of the week that you are actually listening to Inside Out. And thank you for tuning in. Today's topic is all about intuition. Now, what is intuition? So Merriam-Webster's definition of intuition is defined as the power or faculty of attaining to direct knowledge or cognition without evident rational thought or interference. So essentially, intuition is an inner knowing or understanding that happens instantly without any conscious reasoning. It's that gut feeling or instinct that guides the decisions without logical explanation. And I think the problem with intuition is when our logical mind comes into play. So we can probably all relate to that. We have a feeling about something, or maybe we're like walking down the street and we're like, oh, this like doesn't feel right. And then you start to rationalize that with your logical mind of, oh, well, it's just dark, or maybe it's late, or that person behind me is a little too close, or you start to just like think about things. And your logical mind will be like, oh, well, they're just walking home too, or I'm just being oversensitive or overdramatic, or oh no, I'm fine. But how many times have you had a feeling about something and you're like, oh, I should have just trusted myself? And I think that's the problem. We don't trust ourselves. We have a feeling, and then we try and battle that feeling or that gut feeling with the logical mind. So there are 6 types of intuition, and they are called claircognizance, which is a clear knowing. So imagine you get this sudden unshakable feeling and like there's no logical reasoning. Like you just know something about a situation or a person, but like you walk into a room and you're like, oh, that person is like, I just can't be around them. That would be claircognizance, just a clear knowing of like, oh, this isn't right. Like you downloaded information, right? Then there's clairsentience, which is a clear feeling about something. So something that you're feeling through your emotions or physical sensations. For example, like maybe you get like an uneasy feeling in your stomach around someone, or like maybe you feel at peace in a certain place, but you just pick up on energy. And there's clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. You receive intuitive messages as symbols or visions, maybe a dream, and you have like a clear idea of what's going to happen, or you see what's going to happen before it happens. Like maybe you're driving down the highway and you're like seeing a car driving and they're like doing something, and you just like see a crash happening, and then all of a sudden they like veer off the road and they crash. That's one thing. Or you have a dream and you see something happen or play out in a dream, and it actually ends up turning out that way. Or you see something, like you see a job working out in a certain way, and then all of a sudden like things pan out. But it doesn't make sense rationally, right? Because that's your logical mind. But you just have this like intuitive feeling of, I know how this is going to go. Then there's clairaudience, which is clear hearing. So that's like receiving intuitive guidance through sounds, words. Some people say inner voices. Or for example, like you're hearing a song and the lyrics of the song are exactly the answer to something that you've been thinking about or questioning. It's so funny. I will be in a state of process and I'll put on music and I'll just be like, okay, like what do I need to know right now? And I'll put my music on shuffle, and there are such clear lyrics or phrases that come out where I would just stop and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm opening myself up to receive these messages of pause or whatever it is that my question has been. You can get that through music. And sometimes even to that point, it might just be a thought will come into your head and you're like, where did that come from? But it's the answer to the question. So that might be your inner knowing. Then there's clairsalience, which is clear smelling. For example, maybe someone walks by and like their perfume wafts and it smells like someone that you need to call, then all of a sudden you're calling them and you just realize, wow, this is the exact conversation I needed to have. But you got that intuitive hit through a smell that you had. Then there's clairgustance, which is clear tasting. And this is the funny part. It's tasting something without actually eating or drinking anything. Like suddenly tasting a dish that your grandmother used to make that was your favorite, and maybe she's passed on, but it's like feeling her presence in those moments. So those are the 6 types of intuition. If we're honest with ourselves, we get our intuitive hits in different ways. And I've talked to different people about this, and everyone is so different. For me, my intuitive hits come from clairvoyance. I'll see something, whether it will be a flash actually in my mind, but a lot of the time, my clairvoyance comes from dreams, mostly. I do have other ways that it comes through for me, but mostly mine has been in dreams where I will have a dream about something and it will turn out to be that exact way. For instance, about, maybe 7 or 8 years ago at this point, I was in a long-term relationship. I was living with the person and I kept having dreams that they were cheating on me. And it turns out they were absolutely cheating on me. And later years, I've had dreams where they've been almost a warning sign, where I've been able to preemptively avoid a situation or know that I'm going down a certain path and be able to divert because that's not the path that I know I should be going down, which might sound a little nutty the way I'm explaining it, but without getting into too many details. I've had dreams about health-related incidents, and then all of a sudden that situation shows up at my door. I've had dreams about people or conversations that I've had with them, and then I have those conversations, or I've had dreams about friends that I haven't seen in a while being in town, and then they're in town, and it's very strange, but that's the way that I get my intuitive hits. That is my clairvoyance. Another way that I get my intuitive hits is from clairsentience, which is feeling. And people talk about gut feelings. That would be a clairsentience, it's a feeling in your stomach or a feeling in your body, like an uneasiness or a shakiness. And I've actually tried to tap deeper into my clairsentience, and I've done it in a way where I've asked my body to make me feel sick when something is not right for me, like nauseous. I'll walk into a room somewhere and I'll just start to get like, oh, I don't feel good here. And I'll leave because I know that that's that gut feeling of this isn't a good place for you right now, or something's shady here, or someone's not a safe person, or whatever that is. Or I'll walk into a client and I'll get a feeling, or I'll walk into an audition and I'm like, this is not right for me. And I have these feelings before anything happens. And I'm able to really, like I said before, from when I get dreams, basically avoid situations. I've also been able to tap into my clairsentience around people. And I started doing this a couple of years ago where I was dating someone and my body was essentially up in arms around this person. Like it wasn't settled. It wasn't balanced. It was like constantly, it felt like I could equate it to you turning on an old television set and there's that static like shh noise, but imagine that noise as a feeling in your body. Like my brain wasn't calm. It felt very out of whack. I was never able to sleep well next to this person. I never felt easeful in that relationship. Now you could ask, well, why did you stay? Great question. But that was my body's way of giving me real clear signs of this is not healthy or this isn't right for you. But our logical mind is our biggest opponent when it comes to intuition because we try to make sense of it, or, oh, I'm just nervous, or, oh, it's just butterflies, or, oh, it's a new situation. I'm just finding my way with this person. Excuses. Those are the excuses that we make, or the logic that we try to put on a situation that really has no bearing because we're just, we're in that honeymoon phase, or we're in that, we really like this person, we're attached to them, or whatever the circumstance may be, and we ignore all the red flags. When you enter a relationship, you have a feeling pretty much immediately, whether you see something where you're like, oh, I really like that about that person, or you see something and you're like, I really don't like that about that person. It always shows up in the beginning. And these relationships that I see in the world with my friends, whomever, and they're these long-term relationships, and maybe they're going through a breakup, or maybe they ended really badly, or maybe they are in a tug of war in this dynamic. I always go back and I ask them, what was it like in the beginning? Did you see this in the beginning? And the answer is always yes. Oh, I saw it from day one, or, oh, they were always this way. Then why? That's, you knew from the moment it started. Now I get it. That's not easy, because we want to build something. We want to connect. We want partnership. But so often we ignore our intuition. Intuition is basically thinking versus feeling, or conscious versus subconscious, or evidence versus inner knowing, or certainty versus mystery. These are all examples, right? Our logical mind wants to measure results. Our intuition just knows. We just know. This person's good for us. This person's bad for us. And then our rational mind comes in and starts making up all these excuses and stories. But the way that we felt at second zero is typically the bottom line. It's typically what we need to hold weight in. And trust me, I've definitely let my logical mind overrun all my intuitive hits that I got in the beginning. So to get a little personal, which I always do on this podcast, I got into a relationship with someone, and I knew in the beginning that I shouldn't. And it was this push-pull in myself, not in the relationship. The relationship was great, but I knew that there was a reason why I wasn't committing. There was a reason why I didn't want to go all in with this person. And of course, I finally went against my intuition, and I used my logical mind, and I was like, why am I blocking this person? They're such a good guy. They're this, they're that, blah, blah, blah. So I finally went all in with this person and said, okay, let's give this a shot. And shortly after, all the reasons why and the initial feelings of why I didn't want to in the beginning started to show up. But now I was fighting with my logic of how to make this work, rather than knowing intuitively that I should have just not gotten into a relationship with this person. And a few months go by, and the relationship inevitably ends. And a few more months go by, and it was like the relationship never even happened. And it was because, truthfully, the relationship should never have happened. And I ignored all the reasons as to why the relationship never should have happened, because I let, oh, but he's giving attention, and oh, he's doing all the right things, and he's a really good guy. And I let all of those logical things get in the way, instead of just realizing, okay, he's a good person. All of these things are true, but still he's not my person. And I prolonged the time that I could have spent working on myself, or being single, or whatever that was that I needed at the time. I prolonged my energy from, basically my energy wasn't focused on myself and what I really needed. It was drained. It was external. It was about them. It was about the process. It was about the relationship. And I didn't let my intuition guide me. I fought my intuition. Your intuition always knows. There's this beautiful quote that says, intuition is seeing with the soul. Your intuition doesn't lie. The way you feel about something is generally, immediately correct, but we make so many excuses. So a girlfriend of mine was telling me a story about her grandmother, and it was her grandmother's wedding day, and she was going to the church, and every cell in her body was saying, or screaming, or feeling like, get out of the car, don't do this, don't go through with it. And her logical mind came into play and started the narrative of, my mother made this beautiful linen suit for me. We've already paid for the wedding. He's going to be so disappointed. Everyone's waiting for me. But the main reason that her grandmother went through with this wedding was because her logical mind said, your mother made a linen suit for you. A linen suit was the reason that this woman walked down the aisle when her entire existence was screaming no. So this woman gets married, has children, is in a essentially abusive and loveless marriage to this man, and is finally able to escape. But she gave up her life to logic instead of trusting her gut and really saying, okay, I can't do this. We live in such a data-driven, measurable society. And that's our issue. We don't trust that our inner knowing and our inner power has the answers. We want to measure it off of statistics or what else someone else's experience was, instead of just knowing that our inner voice is enough, that the way that we feel, perceive, or have messages drop in is very good, but we block it because we want to make sense of it instead of just trusting that what is coming through is probably for your benefit. And I say this in all my episodes, but at the cost of what? Usually when we go against our intuition, there's irreversible change that happens. For instance, this woman had children and had a very abusive marriage, and you can't just go back and change that. Like, that's real. That's in the world now. If I hadn't paid attention to dreams that I've had, my life would look a lot different right now. So let's address the mess triangle with this intuition, because we realized that this triangle is all connected. One thing that we do mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, all is interchangeably going to affect the other. And the problem with intuition is logic, is going against a feeling, is going against our emotion, is going against what's really dropping in, is going against that spiritual hit, because intuition is a spiritual thing. It's unmeasured. It comes from, we don't even know what, the universe, our inner knowing. Intuition isn't something tangible. It just is. And we block it. We block it with logic. Mentally, we get in our own heads or in our own ways and we say, oh, well, it's just, we make excuses. Emotionally, we push those feelings away. And instead of noticing how that is in our bodies or what that's bringing up for us, we rationalize, or we go off of attachment. And maybe that's to a job offer that we get. We really need something to work in our careers. And so we push that intuitive feeling away and we tie in again that logic. And there are spiritual consequences that happen when we do not let intuition guide us. Because the reality of the situation is the universe will never give you peace in something that you were never meant to settle in. You are going to have chaos and strife and problems and hopefully not too much damage. But the more that you really go against yourself and self-betray to logic and push away your intuition, that's really where problems arise from. So next week, I'm going to have an intuitive coach on. Her name is Michelle Galoob, and I'm really excited to talk to her because she's going to go into how she cultivated her intuitive practice and is going to get deeper and teach us a little bit of how we can hone in on our own intuition. I'm really excited for this interview. I really feel like you guys are going to enjoy it. And if intuition is something that you want to get deeper with or understand more, make sure to tune in next week for Michelle Galoob. And in the meantime, thank you so much for listening. You know where to find me at _insideout.podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. All of that can be found in the show notes. Follow on Instagram. Share this with a friend. Please rate 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. Subscribe. That really helps me. And I will see you all next week. Have a great week. Bye.